You're kidding. Dad, it's really neat.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain.
Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on? I'm James Kirk. These people are my friend and my shipmate. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Joel on True, everyone, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And back from all of those things that I had going on. We had a lot going on there for a while.
We did.
It was like week after week after week after week.
A whole month. Yep.
I just want to tell everybody thanks for letting me go on shore leave last week, letting us take a week off.
Yeah, we all have to go to, what's that planet? Rigel? Once in a while, you know? We all have to take some shore leave.
Yeah. Holy shit, my mental health was in a bad place. I'm good now. Thanks for the concern and we appreciate that. But yeah, I was not in a good place. And so I want everybody to recognize that, like, your mental health is important and we care about you. So you need to care about you so you can take care of your stuff. And sometimes it's okay to step away.
Yeah, 100%.
I will tell you one camp story that's really fun.
Well, okay, so yeah, tell us where you were.
So, So we were
brief synopsis.
Yeah, we were at a summer camp location called Calwood, which is up past Boulder, and it's like on the site of a forest fire that had happened. And so they talk a lot about like fire ecology, and they take you out there to show you the burn. And every time I say the burn, I think of Discovery. But anyway, sorry, no spoilers. That was last year. That was last year.
If surely everyone knows. Well, spoiler alert.
I would hope so. So location was really kind of cool. There were some challenges during the week that contributed to my, mental health stuff. So I'm not going to talk about that. But this place had, it had a lodge and then a full kitchen and it was a camp, a summer camp. But they had this barn cat that roamed free, and he was like this 17-year-old grumpy old man.
I love it.
He was like when he had some zhuzh on it when he meowed. You could tell he was like, I'm an old man. Get the fuck out of my way.
Get out of my yard.
Get off my lawn. But this was the sweetest cat, and this cat loves people and loves the campers, and like. So we left our door open, we're in bear country. Maybe you shouldn't do, but we did. And
yeah.
So we left our cabin door open a lot, and this cat would come in and like go around to every bed and sniff, checking out all your stuff, and then eventually picked a place to hop up and lay down and just fucking chill.
Wonderful life,
right?
What a wonderful life.
If reincarnation is real, I want to come back as that cat.
As a barn cat, yes.
Yeah.
A barn cat in the mountains of Colorado.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So this dude would just, he'd come in and hop up in the bed next to you, and one kid woke up with the cat laying on his feet, and like it was so cool.
How cool. How fucking cool.
Yeah. So that was my therapy cat for the week. I needed something furry to hold on to. Help me get through it. Hey, speaking of something furry.
Yay, we finally
got here. So let's all snuggle up with our furry friends in a big old bowl of Quattro Triticale and dive. Quattro
Triticale? Wheat, people. It's wheat.
Wheat.
Space wheat.
On Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 15, The Trouble with Tribbles.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us.
No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, Uhura?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
This is like one of my favorite episodes of all time.
Well, it's not just yours. It's iconic. It's iconic.
It is.
Even people who don't watch Star Trek know what Tribbles are. And honestly, I was like, I couldn't exactly remember all the details of the episode, but I just knew there were these Tribbles these furry things that just kept multiplying.
I should get mine.
Let me get mine. Let me see where it is. Like,
Go
hang
get-
on. I have a tiny little black one.
Go do that,
hang
and I'm
on.
going to figure out how to take a screenshot of us. Okay. Okay. How to take a screenshot. Fucking print screen button. Okay, ready?
Wait, can't see it. I'm black. You can't see it. Oops, this is his asshole. His asshole. This is Tribble's asshole. No.
I think I got it.
Wait. You gotta show me the.
Okay.
He's a Tribble asshole.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
Okay, let's get on with this. But you can go to our social media and see our stupid Tribble pictures.
Yeah, we've got our trusty Tribbles next to us.
Snuggled up, ready to go. The Enterprise is approaching Deep Space Station K7, and apparently there's a Klingon outpost nearby somewhere to worry about.
Kirk is asking Chekhov and Spock basically the down low on like how close they're going to come to the Klingon outpost and then past history with the quadrant.
Chekhov tries to do some humor here.
Oh
right
my
up
God.
top.
I have, yeah.
And,
I love him. Gotta love him. He's so silly. He's silly.
Kirk's like, how close are we going to come to that Klingon outpost if we stay on our current, flight plan or whatever? And Chekhov pulled out a little racism here. He's like, 1 parsec, by the way, which is a measure of distance.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Star Wars people. Close enough to smell them, he says. And of course, Spock has to come back with, odors cannot travel through the vacuum of space.
Oh, but Chekhov's like, I was just making a racist joke.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I
Which
don't know
was
if it's
okay in the
racist or-
workplace in the 60s, I suppose. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Spock provides some recent history of the area. There was a big old war fought here 23 years ago. And one of the undeveloped planets, Sherman's planet, is under dispute. So both the Federation and the Klingon Empire have claims to it, but Spock thinks the Federation's claim is more sound. And then we get another of Chekhov's misappropriated Russian tales.
It's getting to be a bit much, but yeah, he says that the area was first mapped by the famous Russian astronomer Ivan Burkhoff almost 200, and then Kirk cuts him off. And he's like, no, that's John Burke. And Chekhov is like, Burke, sir? I don't think so. I'm sure it was, and then Spock, confirms what Kirk was saying. John Burke is the chief astronomer at the Royal Academy in Old Britain at the time. And why is Chekhov just literally making shit up? Like,
Right?
why?
Kirk's like, bitch, if anybody's out here colonizing, it's the white Western European dude, not the Russian.
Yeah. But why is he making shit up?
Yes. So Kirk's like, this isn't the first time you've said some shit like this. Like, did you even take history classes at the academy? Or like, did your babushka in Florida teach you this shit?
Oh.
Chekhov's at least aware that the Organian peace treaty requires one side or the other to prove that it can develop the planet most efficiently. And Kirk's like, yeah, and the Klingons might be brutal, but they're also very efficient. And then Chekhov starts to tell another Russian tale when, thank Cybok's God, Uhura calls down the distress call from Space Station K7.
So she's picking up a distress call, priority channel, and Kirk is like, oh, this sounds serious. Let's go to Warp Factor 6 and then code 1 emergency because it's a disaster call. And then they go to red alert.
After the theme, apparently, so I had some confusion here. Apparently, Uhura was supposed to say code 1 because the captain's log explains that this means near or total disaster. And they're coming up on the station, weapons hot, expecting to find some Klingons and space debris. But there was a
Mhm.
discrepancy in the way this distress call has been talked about.
Mhm.
So quickly obvious that the station is fine as they roll up. There's no
Yeah.
Klingons blowing shit
Cool
up.
shot. Cool shot as them rolling up to the, and I know that had to be remastered. I don't imagine that they were able to like do that back then.
But it was very nice. And that comes back too throughout the episode, as you know, we're pitting the Klingons and the Federation against each other. And so there are several times when they do the space shots where you'll have the space station in center and the Klingon ship and the Enterprise opposite each other.
Mhm.
You know, again, showing that like divide. That I thought was a really great
That's cool.
thing to do. So they break radio silence and they call up the station, and the station's manager, Mr. Lurie, answers, and he's like, "Yeah, real sorry about that distress call. Sorry about that." And Kirk's like,
Hit
"Give
the
me some
wrong
answers."
button.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Kirk's like, "Give me some answers." And Lurie's not forthcoming and instead invites Kirk to beam over so that he can try to explain. So they beam into Lurie's office. Now, how cool is this? He's got his own like private 2-person transporter pad. And I don't think I've really thought through this before, but like thinking of like Jetson houses, does everybody have a little transporter at home like this? Like, do they come standard in when you buy your house, or do you have to have them installed?
You have to pay extra? I don't know. I guess it depends on your HOA. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I didn't even notice that.
Oh, what about this? So like you'd have to have one in every home, or maybe in the poor neighborhoods there's a public transporter facility that you could go to a few blocks away from your apartment building. And if you had one in your house, can you lock it off? Like you lock off your front door so that people can't just beam the fuck into your house? How do you keep people from just beaming into your house in Star Trek?
Yeah. Somebody's gonna hack that.
I got a lot of questions.
You gotta have some codes.
Yeah.
Transporter codes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we meet another character here, Nils Barris, and he's played by a real that guy, William Schallert.
Yeah, he's been back in the day. He was in all the
things,
not sitcoms, but all of the series. Is a good guy or a bad guy? Or
he was like cast on The Lone Ranger, and then he became one of those guys that like guest starred on literally every show that was ever on, like Maverick and Father Knows Best and Donna Reed and Wagon Train and The Twilight Zone. Like just you name it, this dude was on it.
Yeah.
Barris is the Federation Undersecretary in charge of agricultural affairs in this quadrant.
Oh, great. He's a politician.
So
Kirk always has trouble with those.
Exactly. He's that guy. He's here from Earth to take over development on Sherman's planet, and he gave the order to issue the distress call. So yeah, this guy's going to be another one of those like ambassadors on the bridge that's just annoying Kirk the whole episode.
Pretty much. And he's got a little mouthpiece, his assistant named Arn Darvin.
Arn Darvin.
Yeah.
So they do introductions all around until Barris demands that Kirk provide every security guard available posted around the storage compartments. And apparently Mr. Barris has not been watching Star Trek, the original series, or he would have known that those security goons don't exactly have a high success rate.
No, at all.
We've lost so many already.
So he's like, I want all of them to guard the storage compartments. And Kirk's like, storage compartments. What?
We have to talk about Shatner's acting.
I thought it was hilarious. I actually thought it was very different, and it was hilarious.
It was funny. He's doing this like double speak thing, like storage compartments. And then later he's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just so weird. It seemed so out of character.
But I think this episode was just about levity, and so I think that just added to the fun of it.
So now we're dealing with this grain called quadrotriticale.
That's when he's like, what?
Yeah. Quadro what?
Quadro what?
Lurie hands him this little packet, this little seed packet, and Kirk pours some out, and he's like, okay, so it's wheat. So what? And Barris makes that fatal error of underestimating Spock, because he's like, yeah, well, I wouldn't expect city kids like you and Spock to know anything about farming and such. And then Spock goes off into this full fucking book report about everything he knows about Quadrilaterally.
Because he's a walking encyclopedia. So it's root grain, triticale. It can trace its ancestry all the way back to 20th century Canada.
Most good things can.
I'm Canadian.
I love you, Canada. So apparently this is the only grain from Earth that will grow on Sherman's planet. Now I got other questions. So you mean to tell me, first of all, in 2260 something, that they can't just GMO some grain that will grow there? Or how about this? How about don't use Earth grain at all? Do Vulcans have grains? Do Andorians have grains?
Yeah. Where are your scientists, man? Your Starfleet trained scientists. They're terrible.
Oh, well, all we care about is Earth. Earth first, right?
Earth grain is the best grain.
we have the best grain.
It's tremendous.
It's God. Tremendous. So the concern here is that this is very important grain aboard the stations. The Klingons might roll up and try to sabotage this plan. And we get a back and forth here where Kirk accuses them of misusing the priority distress channel without a real emergency. Mm-hmm. In the end, Lurie convinces Kirk to send a couple of guards down, but far from every guard on duty like Barris wanted. And Barris is like, 2? That's it? Kirk gets the final burn, though. He says, I have never questioned the orders or the intelligence of any representative of the Federation. Until now.
Oh!
Burn! 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 Burn!
And he storms out of the room.
Burn! Burn!
Well, I mean, Barris, it's an abuse of power and a misuse of government funds. That sounds familiar too. But yeah.
Having ordered shore leave for the crew, Kirk and Spock find themselves at the K7 Bar and Grill. As they're about to leave, Uhura and Chekhov come into the bar. And Kirk's like, damn, did you guys run to the transporter room? And Uhura whips out some stank, and she's like, how often do I actually get to use my vacation days, boss?
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
We never see her run. Yeah, she was amazing in this one.
Yeah. And Chekhov adds, she wants to shop, and I thought I would help her. Did we just gay code Chekhov?
Yeah.
He's my friend that wants to go shop with me. Yeah.
He's so funny. And just then, as they're standing at the door of the bar, some dude rushes in past them and saying, excuse me. They don't pay any attention to him at the time. Kirk, for some reason, he still has that packet of Quadrilaterally wheat, and he gives it to Chekhov. He's like, what do you make of this? And Chekhov's like, oh, Quadrilaterally. He's like, I've read about this, but I've never seen any before. And Kirk is like, well, does everybody know about this except me?
Chekhov's like, it was invented by a Russian, of course.
Of course. Why do they keep pushing that on him, like as if he wants to make everything about Russia?
I don't know. So again, I wasn't alive during the 60s, right?
Right.
But I know that during this time that they were producing Star Trek, there was, like Cold War shit going on with the Russians, right? So again, this was such a forward show that it showed a Russian working with an Earth crew, right?
Right.
And that had to be, at the time, quite the scandal, the pearl clutching. Are they trying to cartoonify him as a representation of Russians? And they're using all these, there dumb stereotypes about Russians? Yeah.
Like, everything is mine. I invented this. They're claiming and shit for themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I was thinking too. Why did they just kept harping on that specifically in this episode? Just for humor. I
it does. It plays for humor well enough for me in the 2023.
He's still it's because he's so likable that
right.
It works. It works.
So another curious character has entered the bar, and we soon see him arguing with the bartender. Later, we find out this is Cyrano Jones. He looks human, but he really read to me as a kind of like proto-Ferengi type. He's trying to pawn off these shitty rocks to this guy to try to make some money.
He's totally what do you? I guess I wouldn't say con artist. He's definitely a con artist, but
Yeah.
like he's just trying to sell shit. Just
Like a used car salesman. Sorry.
Exactly.
Apologies to those of you who sell used cars.
Not used cars, but just trying to sell. He said like, hey, look at my jacket. I got this. Or maybe like a
that's
drug
it.
dealer, but I don't know.
Well, and there are visual references that I think play into that you just said, which is he's got this big old furry coat that's got like 50 pockets all over it, and he's pulling shit out of his pockets. How about these rocks? How about this water? How about this thing?
Right.
But the bar guy has bought from him before, and so he's like, I know your game. I'm not buying anything from you anymore. So Jones says, you're a difficult man to reach, but I have something from the far reaches of the galaxy. And he pulls a furry ball from one of his mini coat pockets, and he's like, listen very closely. There are 3 rules that you've got to follow. Keep him out of the light. He hates bright light, especially sunlight. It'll kill him. Keep him away from water. Don't get him wet. But most important rule, the rule you can never forget, no matter how much he cries or how much he begs, never, never feed him after midnight. Bar guy assumes that the price is going to be insane, and he's like, nope, I don't want anything to do with those things. But Uhura is sitting nearby, and she is interested.
Oh man, this kills me because I like I said, I didn't remember all the details, but I'm like, damn it, it was Uhura's fault. I can't believe the whole thing was her fault. But anyway.
She asks to hold one of these little fluff balls, and it starts purring in her hands, and she's like, oh, I'm hooked now. I got to have one of these.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's when you see a kitten for the first time and hold
yes.
it. It's over.
Yep. Jones and the bar guy haggle a bit on the price, starting at 10 credits on one end and 1 on the other. And eventually they land on 6 credits per Tribble. And so Uhura is ready to buy, and bar guy figures out a reasonable markup that takes it back up to 10 credits. And the camera cuts down to the Tribble, and it's just like stuffing its face with quadritriticale.
Yeah, it was, I guess Chekhov had put the wheat on the counter, and then the little Tribble thing was just making its way, a trail of Tribble. I'm sorry, a trail of, there's too many a trail of quadritriticale, and it's just, it's like pigging out, and nobody's noticing it.
No, but then finally Chekhov's like, hey, it's eating my grain. So Jones snatches up the Tribble, and he's like, oh, no, this one's my sample. It's not for sale. But Uhura, you can have it for free. And the bar guy's like, what the hell, man? I had a sale ready to close. Jones is like, trust me, once she shows that Tribble around, you won't be able to keep them in stock. We get a space shot of the Enterprise in orbit of the space station, and then we're back in the conference room with Kirk and Spock, and as Uhura transfers a call from Starfleet, Admiral Fitzpatrick is on the horn, and apparently Barris made some calls.
He went and he did a run tail that. He's like, Dad, Kirk's not letting me have what I want. So basically, yeah.
Now the safety of the grain and the whole Sherman's Planet project is on Kirk's shoulders. They barely hang up that call, and Uhura's back on the line. There's a Klingon battlecruiser rapidly closing in on the station now. So they race up to the bridge, and they get Lurie on the comms, and Lurie's like, yeah, I don't think the Klingons are going to attack us. See, their captain is sitting right here in my office, right next to me. And the camera pulls back on the view screen to reveal 2 Klingons next to Lurie. And Kirk kind of squints his eyes, and he says, Trelane?
I know, right? Yeah, that's Trelane. So they cancel the red alert, and Kirk's like, okay, we'll be right there.
My dear Captain Kirk.
What? And they know through veiled hatred, they call each other my dear Captain Kirk or my dear Captain Koloff. So it's veiled hatred.
This is a bit of fun. They weave this through a few times in this episode that I really enjoyed. To me, it helped establish right away, like, these are captains who have some history, even though we have not seen it on screen, other than the fact that he's also Trelane.
Right.
So Trelane is like, we're just here for vacation. Klingons aren't as luxury minded as you Earthers. And this is the start of a theme that really, like, carries far into the Star Trek universe and into the future series. this idea of like a species trait of the Klingons. So like we see them bitching about the luxury of soft beds on the Enterprise and stuff like that.
They don't want anything that Earthers would consider pleasure.
Yeah.
They're all hard and full of testosterone.
They must be miserable at all times.
Yes.
Koloff also reminds them that according to the Organian Peace Treaty, their request for shore leave cannot be refused. So there's still a little bit of tension between them all. Lurie doesn't want the Klingons on the station at all, but since they can't be refused, Kirk announces that the Klingons will be limited to 12 at a time, and for every Klingon on the station, the Enterprise will match with one security guard.
There you go.
Koloff's like, damn, bro, we aren't even fighting. Like, don't you worry, everything will be peaceful.
And I was just looking at like what the Klingons look like in this episode. They're like they have sparkly pants on. I don't know if you noticed those fabulous sparkly pants. And then at least they didn't like paint them that other horrible goldish shit brown that they were the last few episodes. And then their eyebrow art, their eyebrow slant didn't seem to be as severe. So they look like humans with goatees.
Yeah, that's what separates them apart is the facial hair.
Yeah, because that's apparently evil.
Yes, exactly. I told you the story about how we were told that men at Disney were not allowed to wear beards in front. You couldn't have a beard if you were guest facing. And it was because some belief or study that had been done back in the 1920s or whatever, I don't know, showed that people with facial hair were viewed as less trustworthy to like their panel in the study. Here's a picture of this person. How trustworthy do you rate them? Like 1 to 10. Here's a dude with a goatee, 1 to 10, and like what they found from that.
Well, I'm sure they could do like, okay, here's a person with dark skin, and then here's a person with light skin. Which one would you trust?
And you get the same shit.
Yeah. Sadly.
So anyway, that's kind of dumb, but that was you're absolutely right. That was the thinking at the time. Down in the rec room, Scotty's sitting at a computer station reading technical manuals. Like you do.
as one does.
Yep. And Kirk's like, really? Another technical journal? Why don't you relax? And Scotty's like, this is relaxing. This is ADHD coding long before ADHD was a popular thing that we talked about. Like, here's a dude that is 1000% into engineering shit and geeking out on the thing that he loves, even if it's his work, is a way to relax.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Me too. I don't want to sit by a beach all the time. I want to like do stuff, and it happens to mostly be in front of a computer screen. But
yeah. Well, apparently Uhura got her Tribble wet because further in the room,
she got her Tribble wet.
She got her Tribble wet. I was thinking the gremlin kind, not the pussy kind. Oh God, that was amazing.
I want to wet my Tribble. I mean,
now there's a group of officers gathered around a table, which has now about 15 Tribbles on it, and they're
all just weirdly silent.
Oh, I thought they were cooing.
Well, no, the whole
the people,
the crew, they're just weirdly silent, standing around, just goofy and just in love with these.
Yeah. Uhura explains that her Tribble had some babies. Nobody seems concerned about any of this yet.
No, I think they're all in like a little trance or something.
So Kirk asks Uhura if she got this on the station. And Spock talks about how its trilling sound seems to have a calming effect on the human nervous system. And he's like, of course, well, not for me. I'm immune, of course. But he's holding this little Tribble and petting it like...
It's like an evil person stroking a cat. He doesn't even realize he's doing it. But when everybody looks at him, he puts it down.
So Kirk and Spock leave, and McCoy asks if he can take one of these down to the lab and see what makes it tick. And Uhura's like, okay, but if you're going to slice it open, I really don't want to hear about it. McCoy says, I won't harm a hair on its head, wherever that is.
And then Freeman comes up and says, since you're giving them away, can I have one?
She's like,
sure.
giving baby Tribbles left. You get a baby Tribble. You get a baby
You get a
Tribble.
baby Tribble.
Everybody gets a baby Tribble.
Everybody's getting one, and I'm like, dang it, I didn't remember her causing this. But I mean, but it wasn't a big. I mean, if she hadn't done it, somebody would have.
Somebody would, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But like, they all look like they just took some old carpet, like shag carpet or something, and they just made balls out of it, different colors and sizes.
But this has got to be terrible for the bar guy, right? Like now already she's just passing Tribbles out left and right.
Yeah, he ain't making no money.
Kirk and Spock are doing a hallway walk when Chekhov calls down from the bridge with Mr. Barris on the phone, and Barris is pissed. He's like, Kirk, this station is swarming with Klingons. And Kirk's like, I wasn't aware that 12 Klingons constitutes a swarm.
I know it's not like, did he not know? He knew, I thought. Maybe not.
I just love this humor that they keep pulling into this episode. This was also the moment that I thought, I think this episode is cemented in my memory as one of my favorite episodes because of its humor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Like we've talked about this before too. Like, Trek is at its best. It's just good storytelling, and like there are just some episodes that really strike a balance of drama and humor. Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of those great examples.
Yeah, I agree.
Kirk explains to Barris that they have guards around the Klingons, guards around the grain. Like, I don't know what more you want me to do. But Kirk does that thing, where you listen to the customer bitch and don't intend to do anything with it. Because he's like, as for what you want, it has been noted and logged. Bye. Hangs up the phone.
Spock is like, can I ask where you're going to go? And he's like, I'm going to be in sickbay with a headache.
What he finds in sickbay is that McCoy's Tribble has now gotten wet and popped off a bunch more Tribbles.
That's what happens when Tribbles get wet.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, what do you got for a headache? And I figured it sounded strange that he gave him some pills for his headache.
Yes, I was expecting hypospray. Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they were edibles.
So Kirk is like, okay, how many of these Tribbles did Uhura give you? Because you've got 11 now. And he's like, yeah, you noticed that?
Kirk's like, how do they, like, bro, just say it. Like, how do they fuck? Or how do they reproduce or whatever? Right. Like, again, so much stammering around sexuality.
Right. And of course, McCoy being such the great doctor that he is.
I don't know.
He's like, I don't know. He's like, but I can tell you this much. 50% of their metabolism is for reproduction. He's like, do you know, what do you get when you feed a Tribble too much? Kirk's like, a fat Tribble? Like, no, you get a bunch of hungry little Tribbles. And he's like, well, I guess you need to open up a maternity ward.
Next, we're in the transporter room as Kirk is giving instructions to Scotty and some crew that are gathered to beam down. Stay together, avoid trouble with the Klingons. And Scotty's like, yep, I'll pass that right along. And Kirk's like, wait a minute, aren't you going on shore leave, Scotty? And Scotty just wants everyone to leave him the hell alone with his Journal of Technology and Engineering.
Look, remember the last time Scotty went on shore leave? He wanted to stay, and Kirk convinced him to go on shore leave, and then he was accused of murder.
Yes,
the woman that he loved, but he kind of fell for. She was murdered. So I
let Scotty do what he wants at this point.
Yeah, leave Scotty alone.
So Kirk insists again that he takes shore leave. Help make sure everybody stays out of trouble. And Scotty's like, he kicks some rocks, and he's like, I'm fine if I have to.
Oh, they go back to the K7 bar. That's where the happening place on this space station is. We're back to the bar with Scotty and Chekhov.
So this scene really triggered some memories of my junior high lunchroom.
Really?
You got the Klingons at this table, and the Starfleets at this table come in. They come and sit at a different table. There's like a dark table in the back where all the stoners have gathered, and they're like, maybe they're kicking around a hacky sack.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Everybody separates into their own group.
Yeah. So Jones comes in, and he starts trying to hawk more Tribbles. But Scotty and the crew aren't interested. So he goes to the stoner table, and they like grab a Tribble and start kicking it around like a hacky sack. Then he gets to the Klingon table, and he's like, friend Klingon. and the Tribble goes berserk.
Screeching and shit. Korax is like, get it away from me.
At first, I was like, okay, I remember that we need to establish that Tribbles don't like Klingons, right? So put a pin in that. We'll use that later. But also, this time watching through with different glasses on, this made me think of that shitty trope about like dogs not liking black people.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Dude.
Like,
yeah,
we bring the Tribble around anybody else. It's fine, but we bring it up to the Klingon.
Okay, wait. I got a funny story.
Okay, good. I made my dog bark on the other side of the house.
Me and my son were hiking the other day, and we were this particular trail, all kinds of pets and everybody, and we passed a dog. Well, people with a dog on a leash. And it was a puppy, and the dog ignored. Dog ignored everyone. Dog ignored my son, and then went straight to me. And was sweet though. It wasn't like attacking or anything. I'm like, "Hi, can I pet him?" And everything. And we had a nice exchange. And then, and then they went on his way. And of course, I think my son made a joke, like, "I wonder why it went just for you." I'm like, damn. I'm like, and I tried to think of a reason, but I'm sure it was just, I don't know. I was covered in sunscreen, and I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, but no idea. I was like, oh, it's not true. That trope is not true.
No, absolutely not. So this Klingon guy, Korax, he's apparently the inventor of the popular Klingon detergent booster of the day. Because all I can think of is borax.
Clorax.
Oh,
yeah.
God. And Korax is like, get that furry fucking parasite away from me. Like a few times he has to say, take it away.
As if he's like afraid of it. Not just that it's repulsive, but that was fear.
Right? Jones isn't too bright, though, because he ends up back at the bar trying to sell another Tribble to this guy. And this guy's like, oh, a Tribble? A Tribble, you say? And then he starts like, comedic music starts playing, and the bar guy pulls Tribble after Tribble after Tribble out from under the bar. Back at the Starfleet table, Scotty and Chekhov have a friendly go at each other over their choice of drinks. Scotty calls the vodka Chekhov's drinking a milk diet, and Chekhov says that Scotty's scotch was invented by a little old lady from Leningrad.
Of course it was.
Of course.
Yeah. And then there's the trope about the drinking of Russians and Scotsmen, too.
Yep. Very stereotypical. Korax goes to the bar, and he pours out half of his drink for Jones, and he starts shit-talking Earthers, loudly enough for the Starfleets to hear. This is a classic scene. This is another one of those, like, even if you don't know Star Trek, you might know this scene. He starts shit-talking Earthmen, talking about, like, they remind me of Regulan bloodworms, and Chekhov's blood starts to boil. Heart rate start pumping a little bit up.
Yep. Chekhov kind of slurs people and says when they make him mad, he calls them a Cossack.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of like, I don't know how it's a slur, but it's kind of referring to like the Ukrainian people in a way. Like the Cossacks were a member of like a people dwelling in the north of the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. There was a tradition of independence and received privileges from the Russians, but it had something to do with, like, even Ukrainians, they have like a Russian ancestry and all that, Slavic. But for some reason, anytime someone slights Chekhov, he calls him a Cossack. So it's kind of like a slur in his mind.
Yeah. And so Scotty has to kind of rein Chekhov in. And then Korax starts shit-talking Kirk. A Regulan bloodworm is soft and shapeless, but not Kirk. Kirk isn't soft. Well, Kirk may be a swaggering, overbearing, tin-plated dictator with delusions of godhood, but he's not soft. And now Chekhov's like on his feet and ready to rumble.
And Scott's like, whoa, just chill.
Korax pushes some more buttons. Kirk's a Denebian slime devil. And Chekhov's like, but you heard what he called the captain. I've got to go kick his ass now. Scotty's like, it's not worth it. But you know what is worth fighting for? The Enterprise.
Yeah. Scotty's being the good big brother like he's supposed to, and he was supposed to be sent there to keep everybody out of trouble. But then Korax goes in on the ship And he's like, well, I'd like to say that Captain Kirk deserves the ship, but we like the Enterprise. We really do. It's the sagging old rust bucket is designed like a garbage scow. Half the quadrant knows it. That's why they're learning to speak Klingonese. Say what you want about the captain, like you said, but don't fucking badmouth my ship.
Scotty's face is like the color of his shirt at this point.
Yep.
And he's like, laddie, don't you think you should rephrase that? Korax is like, oh, you're absolutely right. I didn't mean to say that the Enterprise should be hauling garbage. No, I meant to say it should be hauled away as garbage.
Star Trek fight! Here it goes. And Scotty gets up, punches Korax right across sends him flying over a table.
Everybody starts swinging. The bar guy hides the Tribbles behind the bar, and then he does this little scamper thing through the mayhem for some reason. Yep. Anyway, that leaves the bar unattended, so Jones goes over behind the bar and starts helping himself to pouring drinks as he watches the Klingons and the Starfleets fight each other.
Yeah, they're going at it. He finally decides to take a drink and does a dance through all the fighting and gets to the door. And as the door opens, the bartender comes back in, takes the drink away from him. But then he has another drink in his pocket because that's where we keep drinks.
There were so many like fun moments during this fight, and that's one of them for me. The other one was like Scotty throws a hook and the Klingon goes flying across the bar, and Jones has got like, he's double fisting it. He's got a drink in each hand, and as the Klingon comes flying at him, he like lifts them up like I would keep him from spilling.
I'm just here to watch. I have nothing to do with this. Yeah.
So funny. Like, and again, this is classic, like great fun Star Trek fight stuff. This is that, drama and comedy mix.
Yep.
I think
it was great. I mean, and then the red shirts. Here the red shirts come to break everything up, and the next thing we know, they're in the briefing room, and everybody's lined up as Kirk is dressing them down, and they're all bruised.
So the captain's log informs us that Kirk has been made aware of this bar brawl, and he's not happy. He's canceled shore leave for everybody now. He's got 10 crew people lined up, and he's like, if nobody tells me who started this fight, I'm going to have to cancel the field trip for the whole class. I'm going to leave the room, and when I come back, I want the name of the person on my desk.
He goes to them one by one, starting with Freeman. Okay, who started the fight? And they're like, I don't know. And then he's like, Chekhov, you started it, didn't you? And Chekhov's like, nope. I don't know, sir. I didn't see it. And I'm like, we know they saw it, but I think it's kind of cool that they didn't rat Scotty out.
Right? They're a fucking union right here.
That's how you do it. But then I thought it was funny that Scotty didn't speak up either at that point in front of the men and take responsibility. So
yeah, I think the whole scene was really played for comedy, which I love, because when Chekhov's like, I don't know, sir, Kirk's like, I don't know, sir. Like there's a, it's played for comedy, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
So finally, Kirk's like, all right, everybody's confined to quarters until somebody tells me who started that fight. And he dismisses them all except Scotty. And he's like, Scotty, what the hell, man? You were supposed to prevent trouble. And now the truth finally comes out. Scotty threw the first punch. Kirk's a little shocked by this, and Scotty tries to explain, and he even asks for it to be off the record, which Kirk refuses. And having to hold Chekhov back from throwing the first punch, the insults about Kirk, and Kirk's like, so that's when you threw the first punch. No. So finally it's all out in the open, and Kirk's like, hang on. You hit Klingons not because they insulted me, but because they insulted the ship? What the hell, Scotty?
That's his baby. So anyway, he ends up just restricting Scotty to his quarters until further notice. So he's kind of hurt, I'm like, he's like, they insulted me and you didn't care, but you're going to fight for the ship. So he didn't want him to fight, but at least.
If it was, it should have been for me.
Yeah.
Scotty's kind of happy about this too. And this is fun, right? Because now he can go read his technical journals in peace. And
right. He didn't want to go anyway.
Which, by the way, none of this would have happened if Kirk hadn't forced Scotty to take vacation time in the first place.
Yeah, well, it would have happened. It would have just been Chekhov.
It would have been Chekhov, yeah.
And it would have happened like immediately because, he's got a temper.
Down in sick bay, there's now a giant, clear, acrylic-looking container thing filled with tribbles now, and they're actually like spilling out onto the table. McCoy and Spock are having a classic argument about logic and emotion. McCoy has to explain to Spock that even though something doesn't seem to have an immediate practical use, it doesn't mean they're useless. Tribbles might just eat and reproduce, but they're soft and furry, and they make a pleasant sound, too. Like, they make people happy. Spock says he's well aware of humans' love of useless but attractive things. Captain Kirk, for example. And he's trained himself to put up with just about anything. McCoy's like, well, I don't know much about these little furballs, but I do know one thing. I like them better than you.
And then Spock's like, well, they do have one redeeming quality, and that's like they don't talk too much. And then he excuses himself. I love his burns because they're just so indirect, but just straight to the point, though.
Right. And he always gets the last word.
Absolutely.
This next scene is pretty classic, too. Kirk's up on the bridge, and there's tribbles all over the set now. And he goes to sit down in the chair, and we hear what sounds like a squeaky toy as he sits on a tribble.
Yeah.
Tribble in hand, Kirk calls down for McCoy to come up to the bridge, and then walks down to the forward consoles, and there's just tribbles all over the place.
Just sitting everywhere, all over the work consoles, the little bar, everywhere.
So he snatches up a big fat one out of Chekhov's hands, like, son, you're at work, and these are not work therapy dogs, or work therapy cats, or camp therapy cats.
But then McCoy, here he comes in. He's got one too, stroking one.
Mm-hmm. Well, he asks Uhura, like, how did all these tribbles get on the bridge? And she's like, yeah, I don't know, but they're fucking everywhere on this ship right now. So McCoy figures these things are born pregnant, and based on observation, he thinks they may also be bisexual, he says, reproducing at will. Now, I don't know if bisexual is the word they meant to use, or if we were using that with a different meaning back in the 60s.
Probably a different meaning, I think.
So,
maybe?
like, does he mean they can all get pregnant and can all do the impregnating? Or is this like an asexual self
I think asexual
kind of reproduction thing?
Asexual reproduction is probably what he meant. Or what I would imagine you would hear today about animals that reproduce by themselves.
Right.
Isn't that asexual reproduction?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so bisexual was not the word.
Spock interrupts and he's like, yeah, so I've been crunching some numbers and it doesn't look good. And like I tried to explain to McCoy earlier, they just eat all of our food and give nothing back. They're furry little teenagers.
But Uhura pipes up and she's got one in her shirt. She's like, but they do give us something, Mr. Spock. They give us love. The trilling is like that has this tranquilizing effect on everyone, so everyone's like under the spell of the cuteness. And she's like, Cyrano Jones says a tribble is the only love that money can buy.
Kirk is the wet towel on this idea, surprisingly. I was not expecting this to come from Kirk because he's like, too much of anything, even love, isn't always a good thing, right? This is the everything in moderation argument.
Yeah.
So Kirk's headed back to the station, and he wants Cyrano Jones found and held for questioning, get maintenance to clean up the ship, and Uhura, get these tribbles off the bridge. So they're in Lurie's office, and Jones just kind of keeps deflecting. Spock tries to explain that surely Jones knew what would happen when he removed the tribbles from their natural predator-filled environment into a new environment where their crazy reproduction can run amok. But Jones is like, yeah, so they reproduce fast. Breeding animals is only against regulation if they're dangerous. And you can see these little tribbles are cute. They're so sweet. They're not dangerous. Look at them. This is where I got like that fast-talking used car salesman feel. As he's like, he's backing up, talking his way out of the room.
So he says, well, at 6 credits a head, or rather 6 credits a body, it mounts up. Now, if you'll excuse me, and he tries to kind of get out of there. And Kirk's like, you should sell instruction and maintenance manuals for this thing. Jones is like, if I did, what would happen to man's search for knowledge? Basically, he's like, it's all the fun is to find out for yourself. Bye. And as he tries to leave again, Barris and Darwin come in. And then Darwin is like, go ahead and tell him, sir. And Barris is pissed at Captain Kirk because of his security measures, that he feels like they're a disgrace. and that he's taken the job of guarding his fucking grain way too lightly. And Kirk is like, of course, he's like, well, it's you I take lightly, sir.
That was such a fun play. Barris and Darvin come in with some like really big allegations. They think Cyrano Jones is quite possibly a Klingon agent.
I wonder who put that bug in Barris's ear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Darvin has been digging through dumpsters trying to learn more about Jones, and he found some old receipts that show that he was within the Klingon sphere of influence less than 4 months ago. They're like, this is my smoking gun.
Guilty. But he's also a salesman. He's a barterer of things, so he's probably everywhere, I'm thinking.
Still, being near some Klingons isn't evidence of being a Klingon spy. And Spock recounts the results of the FBI background check that they ran on Jones. He's licensed and bonded and doesn't have a criminal record. He's not on the sex offender registry. And just because his Tribble trade has disrupted the station some, it doesn't prove any ill intent.
But Barris is insisting that, he's after my quadro triticale. And Kirk's like, well, where's your proof? Where's your proof?
So Kirk goes back to the Enterprise. And the rec room is so full of Tribbles now that when Kirk goes to take the tray from the food dispenser, the tray is full of Tribbles.
They're everywhere. He's like, my chicken sandwich and my coffee. This is my chicken sandwich and my coffee. There he is repeating himself again.
They're even like climbing up the walls like slugs.
I don't know I'm sure they had him on a string.
Little Velcro maybe.
Something.
Scotty rocks up with an enormous armful of fluff balls, like a comedic number of Tribbles.
Yes. They're into the machinery now, and they're probably into all the other food processors too.
He's like, they probably got through the air vents or something.
Kirk is like, oh shit.
Yeah.
There's vents? There's vents like that on the space station. Uh-oh.
So off they go to the transporter room to meet Lurie and Barris, and of course, the transporter room is filled with Tribbles too.
There's Tribbles on the pad. There's the transporter guy. Oh, it's Scotty, I think, or whoever's transporting him. There's Tribbles everywhere.
Kirk makes like a half-hearted effort, like he's going to clear off the transporter pad. But he picks one of these Tribbles up and he kind of just like resigns to the reality of the situation.
I was sure he would kick it across the room.
So they beam in. And this beam in is really fun too. They, instead of like the full body transporter shot that we usually get on people, we see just like their thighs down as they materialize with piles of Tribbles around their feet. They hit the ground running as Lurie asks what's wrong, and Kirk replies, plenty, if what I think's happened has happened. So they go into the storage compartments, and Kirk verifies with the guard that all of these doors are secured. Nobody's been in there. And when they try to open one up, it seems stuck. Kirk even tries to open it and can't. So he opens one of the overhead bins instead. Classic Star Trek scene again.
This is the scene I remember as a kid. So the door opens from above. Kirk stands there pouring Tribbles all over him. And this is the scene that I remember. And I swear, as he's talking, somebody's job was to throw Tribbles at his head.
Right? Yes.
And that was hilarious to me.
After the break, Kirk's buried up to his ears in Tribbles, and Spock examines one and says they appear to be gorged. And this sets Barris off. He's like, my grain?
He's like, I'm going to hold you responsible. There's got to be thousands of them. And Kirk is like, hundreds of thousands. And of course, Spock comes in with his, it's 1,771,561. So he does the math of how quickly they procreate and how long they've been there.
Do we call that Vulcan-splaining?
Yes.
Or
that is
Spock-splaining?
Spock-splaining. That's Spock-splaining. Yeah. And Barris is like, you should have known, Kirk. You're responsible for turning the development project into a total disaster.
And he's over it now. He's like, I'm done getting walked over by you. Like, I'm done. I'm over your shit. So he kind of stands up to Kirk, and Kirk's got one more, like, shut up, Barris in him. McCoy, late to every party, arrives, and he's like, Eureka! all we've got to do is quit feeding them, and then they stop reproducing. Like, where the hell was this 3 hours ago?
Terrible, Doctor. Terrible.
Spock makes the observation that the Tribble he's holding is dead, so McCoy scans the pile. And a lot of them are dead, and the ones that aren't dead will be dead soon, so must have been something in that grain. So McCoy goes off to analyze the grain and the dead Tribbles. And
why do we know he ain't gonna find nothing? I mean,
nope.
He's not gonna find an answer.
And Barris throws some more threats around. That he doesn't think that this line of investigation is going to do Kirk any good, and the project's already ruined. And Barris plans to make it clear how Kirk aided in that. Talks about how Starfleet's going to rip him a new one in a formal inquiry.
I'm gonna tell.
Yeah, just you wait until your father finds out.
You wait till your father gets home.
Oof. Kirk's like, yeah, well, until then, I'm still the captain, and as the captain, I want two things done. First, get me Cyrano Jones, and second, the Tribbles are still like falling out of this compartment and bonking him on the head. Close that door.
So they're back in Laurie's office, and a security guard is picking up Tribbles all over the place. And Jones is like, I've got to protest this treatment, Captain Kirk. Kirk is like, I've got a few questions for you. And then Koloff comes in, and he's like, Captain Kirk. And Kirk's like, okay, what the fuck do you want? And he wants an official apology addressed to Klingon High Command for persecuting the Klingons in this quadrant. And he feels like he's harassed his men, but they were all fighting. But Kirk, he feels like Kirk treated them like criminals.
Barris freaks out a little bit about the idea of a diplomatic incident happening here. They'll lose Sherman's planet to the Klingons for sure. And Koloff is already pretty certain that Sherman's planet is a done deal for the Klingons anyway. Like, Kirk has made sure of that. Kirk still needs to know how the Tribbles got into the grain in the first place, and what it was about the grain that killed them.
And then Koloff is like, before you go on, can I just ask, can you take those Tribbles out of here? And the guard takes the Tribbles from him, and then he gets to the door, and Darvin, Barris's assistant, the Tribbles kind of shriek at him, which is weird because they've only had this reaction towards Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
And Spock is like, remarkable. And Kirk's like, hold on a minute. I thought you said Tribbles like to everybody. Jones is like, I don't get it. You know, the last time they acted this way was in the bar. And he goes on to explain, well, that it basically, he took the Tribbles near Korax and it responded negatively to Korax. So Kirk decides to take the Tribbles from the guards and do a little experiment and kind of torment Korax.
There's a moment in this scene that I want to pause and talk about. That's a bit of background that you may not catch if you're not watching for it. But this is, so we have gotten some space establishing shots of the station with ships in orbit of it. This one, we're looking out, behind them is out a window as the Enterprise is orbiting outside the station. And cool. I thought that was just a phenomenal detail. So Kirk grabs a couple Tribbles and he holds them under people's noses one by one. First Koloff, and the Tribble freaks out. And Kirk's like, well, look at that. They don't like Klingons. And he walks over to Spock and he's like, they seem to like Vulcans. He walks over to Barris. They seem to like you just fine, although there's no accounting for taste. Got to get a little burn in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally he walks back over to Darvin. McCoy walks over and takes some medical scans. Heartbeat is all wrong, body temperature. And he reaches up and he pulls off Darvin's mask, and underneath is just Darvin, but with facial hair. And he says, Fred, this man is a Klingon.
Zoinks!
And Darvin says, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
And then he's like, well, I wonder what Star Trek Command will say about that, because Barris was accusing someone of being a Klingon spy, and sure enough, it was his own assistant.
So Darvin was a Klingon all along. He poisoned the grain with a virus that turns it inert when it enters the bloodstream. So the more the organism eats, the more inert matter builds up until it dies, starved to death in a storage compartment full of grain. When Darvin refuses to talk, Kirk shoves a handful of Tribbles in his face. Finally, he admits to poisoning the grain. He's like, fine, I'll say anything. Just get those damn things out of my face.
So Kirk's like, just confirms with Darwin. So the Tribbles didn't have anything to do with this. And he's like, no, I don't know. Just take these things away. I've never seen them in my life. I never want to see them again. And so Kirk's like, that can be arranged. And he basically has the security guards take Darwin to the brig. And then he demands an apology from Captain Koloth. Basically, he put a spy and sabotaged the grain. So he says, you've got 6 hours to get your ship out of the fucking Federation territory. And as they shriek when Koloth comes by, Koloth does this like weird little curtsy bow, and he's like, gets the hell out of there because who's ever seen a big old Klingon afraid of a fuzzy Tribble?
Right.
But this was what added to the humor.
Yes.
But he basically just runs out of the room.
Outside the K7 bar and grill, Jones tries to dip too, but Kirk's like, oh, no, you don't. And inside the bar, we see that poor bartender again, just stuck in a big old pile of Tribbles. Kirk's like, you know what the penalty is for transporting an animal proven harmful to human life? 20 years in a rehabilitation colony. In fact, I know this one where they have this chair that you sit in and there's this light thing above that like reprograms your brain. You'd like that, I think.
Hello, children. My name is Dr. Adams. Welcome to the planetarium.
Jones starts throwing every card he has left at this point. He tries to say that Tribbles are harmless. And besides, it was the Tribbles that helped Fred and Scoob and the gang figure out the mystery.
I was going to say, I mean, it wasn't all bad. Yes, they reproduced, but if they hadn't eaten the grain and did what was in their nature of eating every
you wouldn't have found the spy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Kirk's like, well, let's start with you picking up every last Tribble on this station. And Jones is like, shit, that'll take years. And again, Spock's got a Spock. 17.9 years to be exact. What do we call that? Spock-splaining?
Spock-splaining.
He had a Spock-splain.
Spock math.
The last we see of Cyrano Jones is him stuffing Tribbles into his many coat pockets. The button on the episode. On the bridge, KSM have gathered for chair chat. And Spock reports that Starfleet was able to divert the next shipment of Quadrotriticale, so Sherman's planet will get the delivery, untainted by Klingon saboteurs, and uneaten by Tribbles. Kirk's like, wait, speaking of Tribbles, I don't see any Tribbles. Bones is like, and you won't find a single one anywhere on the ship either. Kirk's like, well, this sounds like a really good story. All right, how'd you do it? And then they do this pass around back and forth thing where nobody wants to fess up and say what they did. And
Right, McCoy's like, I didn't do it, Scotty did it. And Scotty's like, I didn't do it,
Spock's
did it.
idea. Yeah.
And Spock's like, I didn't do it, Scotty did it. So it's back to Scotty.
Kirk's like, listen, I don't want to interrupt this meeting of the Mutual Admiration Society, but can someone please just tell me where the Tribbles are? And they do that, pass it back around again. And finally, Scotty says, I used the transporter, sir. And Kirk's like, holy shit, you did not beam some millions of life forms out into space. And Scotty's like, no way, that'd be inhuman. Kirk presses some more. And Scotty's like, well, I gave him a good home. Kirk presses some more. Scotty finally says, I gave him to the Klingons, sir. Before they went into warp, I transported the whole kit and caboodle into their engine room, where there'll be no Tribble at all.
And they all just die laughing.
Cut, print, that's a wrap.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
I'm sure they had a blast making that episode.
Oh, it's such a fun episode.
Yeah.
And so for a humanist perspective, I had to really kind of dig through piles of Tribbles to find some little nuggets here and there.
Yeah.
First, it's top of mind because like it just happened at the end of the episode. But that whole conversation about beaming life forms out into space and how inhuman that is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a demonstration here, finally, of some concern for alien life that isn't, we got to genocide them before they genocide us, which is how we usually find ourselves in this world. I guess you could argue that on that Klingon battlecruiser right now, they're probably like using Tribbles as phaser practice or something.
They're gonna. They did. So
So maybe not.
It's not humane because they're gonna be.
Klingon's gonna Klingon.
Yeah, Klingon's gonna. No, wait. It's Klingon's gonna Klingon.
Klingon. That's right. Yeah.
Klingon's gonna Klingon, and they're gonna kill them. So So in a sense, Scotty did send them to certain death.
Right.
But he just knows it won't be his hand. His conscience is clear because he did send them to their death, but he didn't do it.
Right.
You know.
Obviously, this is like a really fun whodunit kind of episode. Unquestionably a fan favorite. And I talked about this before, but I really think it's the humor. Like, we're really starting to see, I think, these characters more as developed people. Like, there's a maturity to the character now. Like, and not just military automatons giving and following orders. Like, we kind of felt like at the beginning, like we talked about it was very like submarine in the way they talked and interacted with each other. And now they're becoming friends and kind of loosening up and having fun at work too.
Yeah. The cast seems to like really gel right in this episode. And so that way you can have the fun episodes and it isn't forced at all. It's just natural and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about something that Spock said about we do things we think is harmless, but we end up doing a huge amount of harm. When Cyrano Jones took these Tribbles out of their natural environment that had the predator, their normal natural predator, and because of that is what causes all of this. He's just trying to sell something, but this disregard for that is what
the cost
basically costs. Yeah.
Yeah, that there's a cost. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because we're like, they're cute, without thinking, having any forethought of what you're upsetting the balance of some ecosystem. And
yeah. It also serves, I think, to remind us that tensions with the Klingons are still supposed to be high, which is mirroring Cold War Russia, right, against Starfleet as the United States. So we're having more brushes with the Klingons still, and while relations aren't great, like nobody's nuking each other.
Right. Yeah, they managed to weave humor into the whole Klingon interaction, and it really did work.
Yep, I agree.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price.
Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
All right, well, there are a lot of great ways to help support the show here. One of the free ways to do that is to leave us a review and or a rating wherever you happen to listen to Humanist Trek. Of course, one of the best ways to support the show is to give us some Federation credits by becoming a patron of the show. You can do that at patreon.com/humanisttrek. We want to thank all of our patrons. We want to especially thank our founding admirals. A special thank you to Russell, Allie, Peter, and Sarah. Patrons get early access to every episode. There are merch at various levels, extra replicator rations. Now, maybe I should save that one for when we get to Voyager. So head on over to patreon.com/humanisttrek. Pledge as little as $3 a month. It really makes a big difference, and it means a lot to us.
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
All right, let's bring Becca back in for the exciting answer to last week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge. Last time on Humanist Trek, you asked us,
during the bar fight in this episode, you might notice that while tables are broken, all of the chairs remained intact. Why?
Okay, now, neither of us had a really good answer, and I think I wrote down, I don't know, for both of us. However, hailing frequencies open, we have an answer from the crowd.
Really?
This comes to us via Priority 1 subspace channel from Lieutenant Karen Dramera, one of our patrons.
Hey, Karen.
Karen says, Trouble with Tribbles episode, during the bar scene, the chairs could not be broken. because they borrowed them from the commissary. So were these chairs from another set that they couldn't destroy because they needed to reuse them?
They
continue
needed to
use
reuse them. That makes sense, and that sounds like something they do.
Well, Allie and I don't get any points for this one, so what's the answer?
That was a very good guess and a lot closer than what you two knuckleheads came up with.
Incorrect.
The tables were studio property, but the chairs were rented, and if they were damaged, they would have had to have been paid for.
Oh, okay.
So Karen, it did not belong to where it was. It didn't belong to the set that it was on. So
Yeah.
Very,
good
very
job.
Clear. Yeah.
All right, next week we'll be reviewing Season 2, Episode 16, The Gamesters of Triskelion. 3 disembodied beings wager on fights staged by prisoners abducted from around the galaxy.
Like a Hunger Games.
I feel like this is a story that gets retold in a later Star Trek series. And I think it was Voyager, because it was the one where like Chakotay and somebody were put in and they had to be fighters in this ring. Do you remember that one? You're the Voyager fan.
I do remember Chakotay. Yeah.
So this is like the fighting arena, and they're bringing aliens from all over the galaxy to fight for their amusement. I think that's what this is. Anyway, what's the question for the Gamesters of Triskelion?
Sorry, guys, that has nothing to do with the storyline.
Oh, great. Fun. Okay.
Producers interrupted filming of this episode to give the cast what piece of bad news?
What?
Okay.
Piece of bad. Oh, this is when they announced that the series was being canceled. They were only going to have one more season. Is that it? Maybe?
It was 1968, so maybe somebody died.
That the series was going to be canceled, and that's what sparked the fan letter writing thing that saved Star Trek.
Would they cancel it?
Do you remember
before season 3?
Yes. So Star Trek was canceled. There wasn't going to be a 3rd season, and then the fans they announced that they were canceled, and the fans went nuts and started like massive letter writing campaigns to the studio, and like that saved the show for another season. It's got to be what it is. Well, join us next week to find out the answer to this question. And if you want to play along, share out this episode, use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, and tell us your answer. We'll pick out our favorite. Next week on Humanist Trek, Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 16, The Gamesters of Triskelion.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.